Meghan didn't sleep that night. The world was still talking about the interview. Cable news played the clip on repeat. Analysts debated her tone. Critics called her dramatic. Supporters called her brave. But behind the noise, something far more dangerous was unfolding. Her team had already confirmed it. The Clarkson interview had been influenced by a foreign firm. Not just any firm, but Horizon Strategies, with known links to retired intelligence agents from the UK. They weren't journalists. They were image architects, specialists in discrediting public figures, experts in influence operations. And now, they had targeted her. In a quiet private room at her Beverly Hills residence. Meghan gathered her team, her lawyer, her press advisor, and her new cybersecurity consultant, an ex-journalist named Leila Hammond, who once worked on leaks for The Intercept. Leila had spent the day tracing Horizon's online footprint. She pulled up a map of travel activity and business contracts. Then she pointed to something strange. In the past 2 years, she said, Horizon received 3 silent grants. No donor listed, but all routed through the Commonwealth International Development Trust. Meghan narrowed her eyes. The same one that sponsored my first solo trip to Ghana. Leila nodded. That trip 3 years ago had seemed routine. Meghan had visited girls' schools, women's clinics, refugee centers. But her team now believed something else had been happening behind the scenes. They suspected that Horizon had used the trip as a screen, embedding agents within the humanitarian crew to conduct surveillance, gather data, and assess political influence in post-conflict zones. And Meghan, with her media visibility, had become the perfect cover. Now she was a problem. Across the ocean, in London, things were moving fast too. A confidential report circulated through a secure network at the Foreign Office. It was labeled Markle PR Control Strategy, Phase 2 Inside. It detailed media narratives, crisis simulations, and influencer partnerships meant to reshape public perception through subtle redirection. A memo at the bottom. Read, should subject initiate counter-narrative. Trigger defensive coverage through U.S. affiliates. Avoid direct engagement. Let the media eat itself. Someone inside the system had leaked this report to a BBC correspondent. The journalist, shocked by the contents, didn't publish them. Instead, he forwarded them quietly to Meghan's team. It was clear. This wasn't just a talk show scandal. It was a coordinated media operation. Someone wanted her discredited, not for fame, but because of what she might know. Meghan sat quietly, reading every line of the document. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She leaned forward and said, they still think I'm just a celebrity, that I'll hide or fall apart. But I know the power of the camera. Her team agreed to a plan. Meghan would not respond through social media. She would go back on camera, not for a talk show, but for a sit-down interview with an international journalist. Someone who couldn't be bought or scripted. Someone with the reach to shake governments. Leila suggested Soraya Abbas, a respected Al Jazeera journalist known for investigating Gulf corruption and U.S. drone operations. Soraya had recently won awards for exposing surveillance abuses in refugee camps. Meghan agreed. She won't be afraid to ask real questions. The request was sent in London. The news spread fast that Meghan was planning a reveal. Something big. A second message arrived that night. This one more chilling. Sent through an encrypted account. It's no name, just 5 words. Stop now or be erased. Attached was a low-resolution video clip, a nighttime aerial view of Meghan's California house, clearly taken by drone. No one spoke. The team sat frozen. Her head of security doubled patrols. Authorities were contacted. But even the U.S. agents assigned to foreign interference cases didn't know what to make of it. This isn't just media warfare, her lawyer whispered. This is coercion. But Meghan had made up her mind. She picked up her phone and dialed Soraya directly. I'm ready, she said, but I don't want a soft story. I want the truth out. Soraya's voice was calm. then tell it all. Plans were made for the interview. Location, Geneva. Neutral ground. But what Meghan didn't know was that her flight manifest had already been flagged down someone inside. Heathrow Airport's private charter control was tracking it. From an anonymous workstation, a line of code was written. Mark. Passenger forward to Strategic Comms Division. And at the heart of Horizon Strategies, a quiet voice said, "She's moving again. Deploy Phase 3. The battle wasn't just about narrative anymore. It was about control, and Meghan Markle had just declared war. The plane touched down in Geneva under heavy cloud cover. Security was tight, discreet, and private. Meghan's team had chosen a private medical foundation as the interview's site-neutral ground off-grid, not tied to any media group. No studio lights, no commercial sponsors, just a small, dark-lit room with 2 chairs and cameras set to roll for only one audience. The world across from her sat Soraya, a boss.com, direct, respected. She was known not for shouting, but for listening, for questions cut like scalpels, not hammers. Meghan looked tired but determined. The cameras turned on. The red light blinked. Soraya's voice was low. Why now? Meghan took a breath. Because I've spent 5 years watching people rewrite my life for me. And I stayed quiet. I tried diplomacy, I tried distance. But the moment I walked off that set, something snapped. I knew I was no longer just someone they wanted silenced. I was someone they feared might speak. Soraya leaned forward. Who are they? Meghan didn't blink. The people who build systems meant to protect the powerful, who disguise control as tradition, who use media like a scalpel cutting, reshaping, distracting. People you never see, but whose fingerprints are on every script. Outside the room, her head of security monitored 3 separate encrypted feeds. An unmarked van had been spotted near the site 2 hours earlier. It left, then circled back. Inside. The interview continued. Soraya pressed harder. Your critics say you abandoned the institution, okay? That you wanted freedom, but still demand the platform royalty gave you. What do you say to them? Meghan nodded slowly. I left because the platform had a price. You're allowed to speak, but only with their words. You try to use your own. You're told you're difficult, emotional, unstable. So I chose silence, until I realized my silence helped them more than my voice ever did. Soraya paused. And the walkout on Kelly Clarkson's show, was that the moment? No, Meghan replied. That was the trigger. The setup. I know now it wasn't about asking hard questions. It was about destroying my credibility. But someone made a mistake. They assumed I'd just run. Soraya nodded. And instead, Meghan's voice hardened. I decided to trace the wire. Back to the wall. Then came the reveal. Her team had connected the dots. A British intelligence-linked media firm had fed leading questions to Clarkson's producers. They had tracked Horizon Strategies' digital activity and discovered an offshore database hidden in plain sight containing years of internal notes from Meghan's speaking events, private travel itineraries, and even donor records from her foundation. I wasn't just targeted, Meghan said. I was profiled, mapped, watched, for years. Soraya's eyes widened. You're saying this was surveillance, yes, not by a foreign enemy. By former government operatives acting through private firms. And someone in the UK government is either turning a blind eye or giving silent approval. There was a long silence in the room. And then Soraya asked the question no one else dared. What do you think they're hiding? Meghan leaned forward. I think I stumbled onto something during a tour I wasn't supposed to understand. In Ghana, I visited a rural clinic funded by a humanitarian charity. But behind the clinic, my team saw men moving crates, black, unmarked crates guarded by men who weren't local. When we asked questions, we were told it was supplies, but it didn't feel like medicine. Okay? Her eyes didn't flinch. Later, my foundation was approached about co-sponsoring a new health corridor project. When we declined, quietly started getting strange emails, passive threats, a warning about aligning too far outside protocol. I ignored them. But now, I think that was the beginning, Soraya asked. Do you believe this project is connected to weapons? I believe it's connected to power, Meghan replied. Whether that's arms, surveillance, political pressure, I don't. No, but I do know this. I was never the story. I was the distraction. The camera kept rolling. Outside, another black vehicle pulled up. This one didn't leave. Inside, Meghan gave her final answer. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for scrutiny. I'm asking for the world to look past the headlines, past the palace gossip, and as Kwai with so many powerful people, work this hard to silence someone who's not dangerous, lest she knows something that is. As the cameras shut off, the video was uploaded directly to 3 encrypted servers. The team prepared to release it in 12 hours. But 2 minutes later, an urgent alert flashed across their screen. Server breach detected. External trace to London. Attempting data lock. Someone was trying to stop the interview from ever going public, and they were moving fast. The lights in the control room flickered. An alert flashed red across all monitors. Unauthorized access, node breach source. London. Leila Hammond froze, fingers flying across the keyboard as she tried to isolate the intrusion. She had triple encrypted the servers storing Meghan's full interview. No names, no metadata, no open connections. And still, someone had found them. They're hitting the backup nodes too, she said. This is military level. Again. Stood behind her, arms crossed tightly. Can you stop it? I can delay it, Leila answered. But if we don't move fast, they'll erase everything before it goes public. Meghan didn't hesitate. Go to dead drop. Get it offline. We'll distribute manually if we have to. Leila nodded and activated the protocol. Within seconds, the full interview data was broken into fragments and uploaded to air-gapped servers across Switzerland, Iceland, and an anonymous university server in South America. Each piece was useless on its own, but together they formed a complete file. Only 3 people held the digital key. Meghan was one of them. But even with the breach contained, something was wrong. One of the nodes had responded strangely like. It wasn't just being copied or deleted, but watched. They weren't just trying to stop the video, Leila said slowly. They were tracing it. They were looking for our location. At that same moment, 30 miles away in a business hotel on the outskirts of Geneva, a man named Alec Rhodes received a silent ping to his phone. Former British defense contractor, now a consultant for Horizon Strategies. He smiled. They've gone dark, he told the man beside him, who wore no name, only a ring on his finger that bore the mark of an elite intelligence unit. But not fast enough. We've got a geosplice off one of the Iceland fragments. Margin of error 10 square kilometers. The other man spoke for the first time. Prepare phase 4. Back at the foundation, Meghan's team packed fast. The building was secure but not invisible. And after what they'd seen, they no longer believed in coincidences. Her lawyer pulled her aside. We need to leave Switzerland now. Meghan hesitated. If we run, they win. If we stay and they find us, we lose everything. And I mean everything. She nodded once. They planned to head to Berlin, another neutral zone, this time with allies. A secure studio was already being arranged with ZDF, Germany's public broadcaster, which had a reputation for protecting whistleblowers. But before they left, Leila handed Meghan a tablet. Watch this, she said. It was new footage, leaked from an anonymous whistleblower inside Horizon Strategies. This time, it wasn't just emails or voice memos, it was video, a hidden recording of a Horizon planning session. 5 men sat in a private London office, faces blurred. A whiteboard behind. Them read threat matrix. Control window 2 weeks. Disruption preferred over legal. One voice stood out. Calm, British. Highborn, she's a symbol now. If the narrative hardens around her, we lose control. This isn't about silencing her. It's about fracturing her image before it solidifies. Another voice asked, what if she digs into the Ghana shipments? A pause. If she does, we escalate. The screen went black. Meghan exhaled slowly. The weight of it all sank deeper. It wasn't just about her walkout. It wasn't even about her past. It was about what she might uncover about the charities, the clinics, the humanitarian networks she once trusted. Networks that now seemed less like missions and more like fronts for covert trade routes, black market surveillance tech, and even potential weapons movement. And she had been there perfect. Face, clean, compassionate, global, but she had walked away, and now they were burning the bridge behind her. That night, the team left Geneva in 2 unmarked cars. No lights, no escort, just quiet roads under clouded stars. At the French border, a private plane waited to fly them to Berlin. But 5 minutes before boarding, Meghan's phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. You were never supposed to see the crates. Attached was a photo. A blurry image of her 3 years earlier standing near a Ghanaian warehouse. In the corner of the photo, barely visible, was a man in uniform. Watching her. It was taken from above. By drone, on board the plane. She sat silent. The world still thought she walked out of a talk show. They didn't know she had walked into something else entirely. Something deeper, darker, and far more dangerous. The stage lights were warm and soft. Meghan Markle walked onto the set of the Kelly Clarkson show in a pale blue suit, smiling as the audience applauded. She had come to talk about her new children's book, her charity work, and the upcoming mental health project she had launched in partnership with a global nonprofit. Everything was supposed to be friendly, uplifting, safe. Kelly stood up to greet her, all charm and laughter. We're so excited to have you, Meghan, she said brightly. Let's talk about love, healing, and moving forward. Meghan relaxed a little. This was what her team had planned for. A soft reset in front of a daytime audience. A chance to remind people of the work she'd been doing outside the royal spotlight. The first few minutes of the show went exactly as expected. Kelly asked about motherhood, balancing public life, and writing children's stories during late nights. Then something shifted. Kelly tilted her head, smiled tightly, and said, some people wonder if all this book speech is charity. It's just branding. That maybe it's more about image than impact. Meghan blinked. The question hadn't been in the prep sheet. She straightened her posture and replied carefully. I think any time a woman speaks with purpose, some people rush to call it performance. But I do this work because I care. Kelly smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. Do you ever regret walking away from tradition, from duty? There are people who say you chose controversy over country. The room went still. The audience didn't laugh. Meghan's face didn't change, but her fingers laced together more tightly. I chose peace over protocol, she said quietly. And I don't regret protecting my family. There was a flicker in Kelly's expression, something quick and unreadable. Then she leaned in slightly and said, but when does victimhood become a brand? Don't you think there's power in letting go of the narrative? That was the moment the air left the room. Meghan didn't speak right away. She looked at Kelly, then at the cameras, then back at the audience. Her voice was steady but sharp. I thought this was a conversation, not a performance of judgment. She said, I came here to talk about real work, not to defend my life like I'm on trial. Kelly tried to laugh. Oh, come on, Meghan, we're just keeping it real. People want honesty, and honesty requires respect, Meghan said. She reached up, pulled off her microphone, and stood slowly. If we're going to pretend this is a safe space, then I won't participate in the performance. Kelly looked stunned. We were just getting to the real stuff. Meghan turned back once and replied, then maybe ask with respect, not insult. And she walked off the stage. Her heels echoed through the quiet studio as producers froze. unsure whether to cut to commercial or keep the cameras rolling. Seconds later, the screen faded to black dot. Within 15 minutes, the internet caught fire. Meghan walks out. Kelly vs. Meghan. Respect women. Clips from inside the studio began to leak online. Unedited footage showing Meghan's face harden as Kelly asked the final question. Viewers were split. Some said Meghan was thin-skinned, others called her brave. Supporters praised her refusal to be humiliated. Critics accused her of being ungrateful, but deep in the background, something more dangerous began. An anonymous Twitter account posted screenshots of internal show emails. The messages revealed something shocking. The producers had been coached by a British media consultancy with links to former government intelligence officials. One line in the email stood out. If you press the victim branding angle, you'll trigger a reaction. That's the clip we need. People began asking who fed that line to Kelly and why. And suddenly, this wasn't just a celebrity walking off a talk show. It was the beginning of something far more political. The next morning, news outlets across the world were already dissecting every second of the broadcast. Headlines screamed. From every screen, Meghan walks out. Mid-interview, Clarkson left speechless. Did Kelly go too far? A setup or just tough questions? But something deeper was happening beneath the surface. A journalist at The Guardian received an anonymous tip from a private source inside the Clarkson production team. The message was short, encrypted, and sent through a protected channel. Check the consultant log. The questions weren't written by Kelly. They were scripted by an outside team. That one sentence changed everything. At the same time, Meghan sat with her lawyer and press manager in Los Angeles. Her phone kept buzzing. News anchors were debating her behavior. Social media was ablaze. And her charities were being flooded with both hate and support. But she wasn't thinking about trending hashtags anymore. She was thinking about that line, the one about victimhood as branding. It hadn't sounded like Kelly. It had sounded rehearsed, cold, calculated. Not something a casual host would say to a guest on live TV. Meghan's team started digging. Within hours, they found a quiet contract filed under the show's PR budget, consulting services delivered via Horizon Strategies. The name meant nothing at first, but her legal advisor recognized it. Horizon Strategies was an innocuous-sounding media firm based in London, officially listed as a communications consultancy. But several watchdog journalists had flagged it in the past for having deep ties to former British intelligence officers and reputation management. Work for political figures in Europe and Africa. Meghan's face went pale. She had seen the name once before in the briefing documents for a royal tour of West Africa, back when she and Harry were still part of the institution. That trip, supposedly humanitarian in nature, had been marked by unusual behind-the-scenes movement. Black vans, unnamed men in suits, unusual requests for secure zones during her visits to rural clinics. She had ignored it then, trusted the process, believed it was standard procedure for royal travel. Now the same name had shown up again. And this time it was tied to an attack on her character. Why? Later that afternoon, a second tip landed, this time on the desk of a CNN investigative producer. Attached was an audio file, a private planning meeting between Clarkson's executive producers and a Horizon consultant. Named Miles Cavanaugh, his voice was clear. Push the victim branding angle. It's viral. She'll react. She always does. Keep it calm on the surface, but press it gently until it snaps. The leak wasn't just bad for Clarkson. It was a bombshell. It proved that the interview had been a deliberate psychological setup. Not a genuine journalistic discussion, but the bigger question remained. Why was a British media firm orchestrating an attack on Meghan Markle on American daytime television? And then Meghan remembered something even darker. In early 2021, right before she and Harry formally cut ties with royal duties, She had been approached by a man at an international development conference in Nairobi. He claimed to be from a London-based nonprofit interested in partnering with Meghan's charity to deliver education services to post-conflict zones. But something about his tone had been off. He'd asked too many questions, too specific. He knew details about her past schedule information that wasn't public. Her team declined the partnership quietly now. They searched his name. He was real, yes, but his nonprofit no longer existed. It had folded in 2019. The man had used a dead organization as cover, and Horizon Strategies had shared board members with that fake nonprofit. Meghan sat back in her chair, stunned. They had been watching her for years, using charities, using travel, using cameras. The walkout wasn't a meltdown. It was a trigger. The real operation was about framing her as unstable, emotional, dangerous to make sure no one listened when she eventually uncovered what they didn't want her to see. That night, as the sun set over Los Angeles, Meghan turned to her press director and said, "They're not just trying to shame me, they're trying to bury something. We need to find out what." And far across the ocean, in a secure briefing room in Westminster, a man in a navy suit watched the footage of Meghan walking off set. He didn't speak, just folded his hands, leaned forward, and said quietly, "She's getting too close." Operation was no longer about controlling the narrative, it was about survival, and Meghan Markle had just become a threat too visible to ignore. The plane touched down in Berlin just after midnight. Rain tapped against the tarmac. A small team from ZDF met Meghan's group with no fanfare, no reporters, no flashing cameras. It's just quiet nods, sealed cars, and secure communication lines. This was no longer about public image, it was about exposure. Inside the studio's underground recording room, Meghan sat under soft lights as the team prepared a new message. Not another interview. A reveal. One that connected all the pieces: Horizon Strategies, the Clarkson ambush, the crates in Ghana, the fake humanitarian cover. Every thread pulled from her past now pointed to one truth. She had been used, and now she was ready to name those behind it. Her lawyer, speaking low, handed her a paper with 3 names. "These are the men in the Horizon footage. We've confirmed identities." Meghan looked down. One was a former UK trade official, retired, supposedly. Another, a board member of the Commonwealth International Development Trust. The last name chilled her the most. Lord Carrington, a senior peer in the House of Lords tied to military procurement, long rumored to have shadow ties to private intelligence firms. A man once photographed beside her during a Commonwealth charity gala-smiling, now revealed as one of the architects of her manipulation. "You were their brand," Lila whispered. "They built a narrative around youth, then tried to collapse it when you stepped out of line." Meghan nodded. "They used my name to cover arms deals and surveillance networks. And now they're trying to erase the only person who might expose it." The message she recorded was simple. No dramatic music. No special effects, just Meghan staring directly into the camera. "I was never the enemy," she began. "But someone decided I was dangerous the moment I chose truth over performance." She explained how she had been recruited for charity work that masked darker operations, how private firms worked alongside media to control her public image, how concerned donors were actually intelligence cutouts. She described the crates in Ghana, the threats, the surveillance, and then she named the 3 men. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about every person being used by systems they cannot see." The file was ready, but it wouldn't be published through YouTube or social media. Lila had arranged a mass data drop-in international coordinated release across 50 independent investigative outlets. The story would go live across continents, all at once. Impossible to stop. But London wasn't silent. Back at Horizon's private data center, a new strategy was being activated. Phase 4, Character Dismantling. It began with a leak. An anonymous report sent to multiple UK tabloids claimed Meghan had secretly pressured African governments during her charity work. The source was labeled internal whistleblower, included fake documents, invented messages. And within hours, your headlines exploded. Former Duchess accused of political meddling in Ghana, leaked emails raised ethical concerns about Markle Foundation. It was fast, brutal, and intentional. They were trying to preempt her reveal by poisoning the public first by morning. Trolls flooded her digital channels. Liar, manipulator, fraud, comment sections boiled over. Even friendly journalists went silent, worried they were being dragged into something too big, too dangerous. But Meghan didn't flinch because, as the chaos unfolded online, Soraya Abbas appeared at her door with something far more important, a document stamped with the seal of the Ghanaian Defense Ministry. Marked classified. Someone inside wanted you to have this, Soraya said. They're taking a risk. This proves everything you said. Meghan read the first line and froze. It was a logistics manifest. Date matched her trip. Location: the same clinic warehouse. Contents of the crates: encrypted comm systems, non-traceable GPS payloads, drone components. Not medicine, not aid. Surveillance tech intended for off-the-books monitoring operations. Cross parts of West Africa. The final page listed the recipient, Carrington Export Limited, and the person who approved the shipment, the former UK trade official. Meghan had just named .now. She had proof. Her team prepped the release. The story would go live in 12 hours. Meghan sat quietly, staring at the screen. But just before she turned off the light, her phone buzzed. One message, no name, no subject, just 3 words: "See you soon." She showed it to Lila. Lila didn't speak. She just reached for her encrypted phone and called the German authorities. "We need protection, now." Berlin woke up to a storm by sunrise. Over 50 news outlets had published the full story. Headlines around the world carried Meghan's words, the documents, and the video proof that exposed a covert British-led network using humanitarian programs to smuggle surveillance tech into African nations. The Guardian: Meghan Markle exposes intelligence front hidden inside aid work. Al Jazeera: crates, royals, and cover-ups inside the hidden arms of Western influence. The New York Times: whistleblower or target? The Duchess and the secret network she disrupted. And just like that, the narrative flipped. Meghan's critics were forced to go quiet. Media anchors who once mocked her were now quoting her. International human rights groups called for investigations. Ghana's parliament demanded answers from British officials. 2 of the men named in her video disappeared from public view. Lord Carrington, the most powerful of them, canceled his appearance at a defense summit in Brussels without explanation. But Meghan wasn't celebrating. She was moving. The message on her phone, "See you soon," was not a joke. Her German security detail had doubled since the message came. Their encrypted systems were under constant pressure from unknown forces. One camera drone had been spotted hovering above her Berlin safe house. And another attempt had been made to breach her email server using military-grade tools. They knew it wasn't just media retaliation anymore. It was real-world retaliation by nightfall. Meghan agreed to one final appearance. Live. Not pre-recorded. No cuts, no producers this time. She would speak directly to the public on the global feed of the International Press Union. Broadcast without editorial filter. Inside the secure studio. Soraya Abbas returned to moderate again. She kept her tone steady. "Professional, Meghan," she began. "You have changed the global conversation in 48 hours. You've released evidence connecting respected Western organizations to covert intelligence operations. But now you've received personal threats. What happens next?" Kane didn't blink. "What happens next," she said slowly, "is up to all of you." She looked into the lens, millions watching. If the world lets this story pass, if we choose silence again, then they win. Not just in Britain, not just in Ghana, everywhere. Because this isn't just about spying. It's about trust. About who gets to call themselves a humanitarian and who gets sacrificed in their shadow. Soraya leaned in. What do you want? Transparency, Meghan said. Accountability. I want the media to stop protecting. Power. I want people to know how close we came to believing lies simply because they were delivered with smiles and studio lights. Soraya asked, do you regret leaving the royal family? Meghan took a breath. I regret not seeing sooner how deep the machinery goes. I thought I was stepping away from a palace. I was stepping into a battlefield. Outside the studio, Berlin, police intercepted two men in a black car circling the compound. One carried a fake ID. The other held surveillance maps and a satellite phone registered to a Horizon shell company in the Cayman Islands. They were arrested quietly. No press release, just silence. The fallout spread like wildfire. The UK Parliament opened emergency hearings. Germany announced a new regulatory task force on NGO-backed tech exports. Canada's government suspended 3 aid contracts. Horizon Strategies website vanished overnight, but the most unexpected blow came from within Buckingham Palace. A senior aide, one of Meghan's few allies from her time inside, resigned and released a quiet statement. She told the truth. We all knew it, but none of us had the courage to back her. That night, #she told the truth trended in 30 countries back in Berlin. As the cameras shut down, Meghan stood at the edge of the rooftop garden above the studio. Wind in her hair, no makeup. No team. Just her. Lila joined her quietly. You did it, Lila said. No, Meghan whispered. We started it. Below them, street lights flickered in quiet lines. Somewhere, more threats were being drafted. More. Spin prepared. But the difference now? The world was watching with open eyes. And Meghan, once their distraction, was now their mirror. No one would forget what she had revealed. And she wasn't done yet.